Oh, I'm a gamer? I mean, how did you notice? I hate I hate that I do this. Hey everyone, my name's Shane, and you just saw footage of the game that I spent the last 2 years working on with my fiance Allison and my best friend Andrew. It's been like a year, or like a year and a half even, since the last video, so the process of making one every month obviously hasn't panned out. But we made that video with a plan to post it right away, and now we've posted it now, and that's for a good reason. We feel now like it's time to show you, well, a little bit more information about what you just saw. Our game's a 4-player cooperative roguelike, where each person plays as an individual mage with unique abilities, and they have to use their creativity to try and defeat their enemies. Currently, we've got 4 mages implemented, but we have lots of ideas for more. We have the hot-headed fire mage, who uses their fire magic to destroy their enemies. The timid water mage, who prefers to protect his allies from danger before resorting to violence. The cocky lightning mage, who uses their speed to dash in and out of close-ranged combat. Is this true anymore? It's fine, I'll say it anyways. And finally, the stoic earth mage, who uses their control over the earth to limit their enemies' movements. Please remember that anything we show here is still a work in progress. Obviously, anything you see is subject to change, and what you see now isn't necessarily going to be the only thing that's in the game. There's lots of stuff we're investigating and looking at adding, and there's lots of really awesome stuff I'm not going to talk about here that I'll tell you in upcoming videos, so definitely stay tuned for that. And subscribe if you're interested. I fucking hate saying that. Cut it out. Cut that. Well, I could tell you a lot about the present state of our game. I actually want to look back to the past and show you guys how we got there from what we first started with. And I want to talk about some of the mistakes we made and what we learned from them as well. So come along with me and let's see. Do you like that? Come along! I'll set the tone. Andrew, Allison, and I are sitting in a restaurant, brainstorming what kind of game we might want to make with each other. We realize we want something cooperative, something where players have to work together in order to beat the game. And we also realize that we want something that you can play over and over again. The second one felt easy to solve. Roguelikes are great for replayability, so let's make it a roguelike. But the first one felt a little bit more difficult. We thought about some of our favorite multiplayer games, things like Overcooked, World of Warcraft, Left 4 Dead, games where you had to work together and couldn't just stand in the same lobby in order to succeed. Games where you aren't just playing with your friends, but you're dependent on them in order to succeed. We eventually landed on the idea for a game where you all play as an individual mage, and in order to combine your magical powers together, you have to physically use them in conjunction with each other to create new powerful effects. Imagine a fire mage throwing a fireball and a lightning mage hitting it with a lightning bolt, and the combination of those two things created a powerful explosion that would destroy a bunch of enemies. This idea seemed really awesome, and we were super excited to get started. Here's our first try at the idea. Why did we implement a fire and a water mage creating steam first? I have no idea. Making steam is definitely not as exciting as making an explosion. We should have just made the exciting part of the prototype first, but when you're first starting to make games, it's definitely not the easiest task to prototype. Anyways, here's where we actually implemented the explosion combination, and it's hard to tell over video, but it felt alright, I guess. It wasn't super exciting, and not nearly the level of excitement we were hoping for in our heads. And not only that, but hitting a fast-moving fireball with a lightning bolt, or vice versa, is harder than we thought. This is where game design can be exceptionally difficult. It's hard to tell if it's the idea that's bad, or maybe if it's just the execution. Maybe it doesn't feel fun because there aren't enemies. Maybe we need items. Maybe we need to tweak the speed and size of the projectiles. This is the sort of thing that I still don't entirely know the answer to. How much work do you put into something before you decide an idea isn't worth pursuing? It's really hard to say. Vinny can green screen?
Yeah.
You can cut
part of it.
Yeah, Vinny, do
Honestly,
that. That'd be so funny. It's often these decisions of sticking with a mechanic or abandoning one that can morph something from this into this. It felt hard to let go of this execution because we really thought it was very cool at the time. But sometimes that's just how you make improvements. You have to let go of the things that aren't working. Even now, I'm definitely attached to what we have. I know many things will change in minor or even major ways before the release, and that's something that's hard to accept. I might have to kill off bosses or mechanics, or even characters if they don't help make the game better as a whole experience. Regardless, combining magic by shooting it together just didn't feel like a viable way to move forward, so we got together and we brainstormed other ways to create this kind of interaction. Our next idea for the project was a more controlled way of trying to have interactions happen. Enemies could be afflicted with a status effect, such as on fire, electrocuted, and the idea was that when an entity had 2 status effects on them, different results could happen. So if you were wet and electrocuted, you might get stunned, or being wet and on fire might result in steam. And then, I don't know, maybe you could shoot lightning into it and create a thundercloud or something. You know, the basis of an idea was there. There were a lot of advantages to this idea, actually. It piggybacks off of the concept of status effects, which most gamers already know, and it's also easier to try and hit an enemy with projectiles than it is to hit 2 fast-moving projectiles together. There were some pretty glaring problems with this as well, though. One of the biggest problems is that it doesn't require the player to make an interesting choice. They want to do the same thing they were doing in the first place, attacking enemies as fast as possible. Not only that, but some of these interactions didn't make much sense. What should happen when you're on fire and electrocuted? Because of this, we decided that an affliction system just wasn't the right path forward for creating interactions between players. The affliction system as a whole did feel very natural though, because they're still in the game. I got distracted by you, I'm sorry. No, are you okay? You just look tired. Because of this, we decided that an affliction system just wasn't the right path forward for creating interactions between players. The affliction system is still in the game to this day though, because it did feel very natural. Enemies can get wet from the water spray, and a bolt of lightning on a wet enemy can cause a stun. We'll likely add more interactions to the game as we add more mages and spells, but because of the previous reasons, it's never going to be a solution to how we want players to interact, rather a supplement to the already existing gameplay. I want to mention that I'm going through this all really fast, but we've spent a lot of time on this project, obviously. If I wanted to go into detail about all of this, I could really talk forever. Even the affliction system we spent months on, trying to sort out whether or not it was the right path forward, and here I'm breezing through it in a couple of paragraphs. That being said, remember, this is something that took a lot of work and took a while to come to these conclusions, so just keep that in mind as I go through this. Anyways, if previous attempts were too chaotic, too hard to do intentionally, and lacked meaningful choice, what if we instead presented a very explicit system where players had to commit to the combo? This is when we came up with the idea for the combo system. What if you pressed a button that tells the other player, hey, I want a combo? And if players get near you, they can do a combo together. These combos included things like turning yourself into a fireball that can be thrown, or creating a thunderstorm that strikes enemies with lightning. They felt like a pretty cool idea, and even now, we do kind of think they're pretty cool. These combos would be unique for each type of mage, so if you had 3 mages together or even 4 mages together, you might have a crazy unique combo. I had to burp. These combos were unique for each pair of mages and each triplet of mages and each quadruple of mages, so it kind of was spiraling to this large thing where every possible pair of mages would need a combo together, and it became hard to manage, but it just was really cool. It just seemed really fun. I also want to make a quick side note. While we were implementing the combo system, and that was the main focus, we'd also been implementing some other ideas in the meantime. Movement abilities for each mage felt like a good idea, so we added those. But we also created the idea of interactive abilities, which were abilities that had utility, allowing you to interact with your teammates directly while still being useful against enemies. The water mage gained a bubble that could disable enemies, but protect allies, and even heal them. The lightning mage gained a lightning rod that could be attached to enemies or allies, and would deal damage to anything in between. The earth mage gained the ability to grab enemies or allies and hurl them at things to deal a large chunk of damage. And the fire mage got, he got a magma laser. The flavor is a little bit loose here. We definitely stretched for this one, but the point of the laser was something that would drain a lot of mana but deal a big chunk of damage, or even allow you to heal allies. It was hard to come up with an interactive ability for the fire mage. The combo system seemed like a really cool idea, and these interactive abilities felt like they were down the right path. But to know for sure, we had to start playtesting. This was an issue for a couple of reasons. Many of our friends we know online, and we couldn't easily get together a group of 4 online people to play a local game. We really did have a number of local friends we could have playtest with, but we imagined that we wanted to do this huge, large-scale playtest. Also, if I'm being honest, we were just really scared to show off our game to people. It's scary to think that something you've worked on for so long might not actually turn out to be so great. Because of our drive to delay playtesting as much as possible, we decided it was time to network the prototype. I'm gonna save you the boring details, but hopefully I can show you some funny issues we ran into.
Goodbye. And... Ooh. Goodbye! Oh wait, I can follow him. Oh my god. Oh my god. Much faster.
Oh, you wrapped around. How big can you go?
It'll all be fire.
The death of the world.
Okay. If I'm being honest, this is probably something we should have tried sooner. We put a lot of work into things believing that we would be able to network it retroactively without knowing fully how feasible it was. It ended up working out in the end, but again, it's a good thing to learn from and be careful moving forward. Networking has big overhead, and if you plan to do it, it's really a lot better to build around it than, shoehorn it in at the end. Phase 5. Playtesting. I had these and I'm just skipping through. We finally decided it was time to bite the bullet. We pushed it off long enough, but it was time to let people actually try our game. I want to preface this section by saying that we've really done a lot of playtests since this, and we're going to continue to playtest as often as feasible. It's one of the best ways to get feedback about the direction of your project. If you're working on your own thing, please have people try it. It's super scary. I know, I get it, it's terrifying, but it's super, super important. Also, playtesting is super complicated. There's a lot that goes into it, so I'm going to be skipping over a whole bunch of details to make this section not last 10.5 hours. If you're interested in a video where I talk about the playtesting process and what we learned and those sorts of things, please let me know, and I definitely would be interested in making something like that. For the playtest, we ran 2 separate trials. One for the combo system and one without it. There were a lot of playtests and a lot of feedback. Honestly, probably more than we needed, but it was really interesting to see what people thought of the thing we made. Finally, really, it took 6 months of work to get here. It was great to see people play the thing we'd been working on for the last 6 months. It was also terrifying. You really put yourself out there, and pushing yourself to garner feedback is hard to grow comfortable with. That's part of the reason why it's taken so long for us to make this video. Anyways, here's what we found from the playtest. From the playtests. Of course, it wasn't just one. When watching people playtest, we saw a pretty consistent pattern. When players talked about the combo system, they were super excited about it. They loved the idea of it. But when they had to interact with the system, it just seemed unwieldy. It took players out of the game. Oftentimes, we'd find that they wouldn't even use the combo system much at all, despite their praise for it. It mostly felt like the game had 2 conflicting systems. One was the combo system, where in order to cast spells, you had to shift your focus entirely to your other teammates. Stop what you were doing, head over to them to do your combo. The other system was more like a fundamental roguelike. Cast spells, take out the enemies. Some of those spells affected your teammates, notably the interactive abilities. The combo system could have potentially worked out, but we probably would have shifted the entire focus around the game to utilizing it. And we weren't really sure if it was that fun. On the other hand, the basic abilities we had for the mages felt really fun, and some of the interactive abilities people really seemed to enjoy. Notably the bubble and the grab, people just really liked the ability to interact with their friends like this. Because of this and many other factors, we decided that the best way to move forward was to not go with the combo system, but instead focus on creating spells that worked well in conjunction with each other. That would hopefully create a solid, interactive experience with gameplay we knew felt smooth and engaging. If you look at our current project, you can actually see the grab and bubble in a newer, more beautified form, while the lightning rod turned into a more stun AoE that the bunny is capable of doing, and the laser turned into a campfire that the fire mage can throw down and give the players some temp HP. Remember that some of these abilities might change, and in fact we're considering changing some of them right now. We want to be careful to curate these abilities and make sure they're really making you feel like you're cooperating and contributing to your team's success. Anyways, now that we had a more clear direction on where we were taking the game, we decided it was time to reprogram Literally everything. Okay, I know that sounds stupid, but when we built the prototype initially, we knew that this was the long-term plan for it. We wanted to make something that was scrappy and quick and re-implement it once we had a good system that we knew existed. You know, I say scrappy and quick, but then we spent 6 months working on it, so lesson learned there, I guess. Because of the re-implementation process, we spent many more months without any feedback or really, you know, testing with anyone. And this huge gap created a problem for our team. We tried to design new abilities that were interactive and scenarios that encouraged players to interact, but we spent so much time without testing it that we didn't know if it really did again. This led to a period that was pretty hard to deal with, but I think it made our game better than it's ever been. After all the work of re-implementation, we got pretty strong criticism about the design and direction on our first playtest back, and it was really valid criticism. While we had a vision for the player collaboration, we didn't do enough to actually encourage these players to collaborate. The game wasn't hard enough, the encounters weren't forcing players to use their abilities together. Not only that, but some of these abilities often failed to have practical purpose while the players were playing. Some of the biggest examples were the Earthdeer's Grab and the Earthdeer's Wall. What purpose did you have to grab your teammates at all? What reason was a wall useful when you didn't feel a need to protect yourself? This was a hard revelation to face directly. It was pretty deflating, honestly, but it was something we really had to hear. It's predictable that making so many design changes without proper feedback might end up like this, hence why I've been trying to emphasize the importance of feedback this entire video. With all our fear of criticism, this was basically a complete validation of those fears. How could we make those abilities I talked about relevant? Were we just wrong? Was it not fun to begin with? These weren't even the only problems. Anytime a player died, they lost interest in the game. How do we keep dying players engaged? Should we go back to the drawing board and just start over with a new mechanic? Sometimes the best way to fix something is to take advantage of someone, is what I was gonna fucking say. Sometimes the best way to fix things is to take advice from someone who knows more than you. The lead designer of Magic the Gathering, Mark Rosewater, has talked about the many lessons he's learned being a designer for over 20 years. One in particular felt really relevant here. It's not the player's job to find the fun. It's your job to put the fun where they can't help but find it. We had fun abilities, even abilities that made the players interact. We knew that, but we hadn't designed a system to not only encourage that, but in some cases force them to do it. So what do? Well, for starters, we made the enemy encounters much more lethal. Where in the past, enemies did a small amount of damage and acted like bullet sponges, now the players could die in a few hits. Additionally, we added a revive mechanic like in Left 4 Dead or Vermintide. This kept players in the game, but even helped give more relevance to abilities like the wall and the grab. Have a downed player in a dangerous situation? Grab them and throw them into somewhere safe. That's a super awesome use for an ability. Additionally, we tried rooms that weren't as straightforward as just killing all the enemies. Rooms where you have to survive a certain length of time, or you even need to kill enemies in a certain area in order to win. We tried to add more threatening enemies too, ones that dealt like massive damage, or even one who grabs you and immobilizes you and then tries to run away. It really forced you to pay more attention to your teammates and rely on them when things went south. There were a ton of changes that came out of this playtest. I can't go over them all, but even certain spells the mages had changed. We removed the movement ability from the water mage and replaced it with a whirlpool that sucks enemies in. This was to try and give an ability that would really encourage players to work together, given the water mage lacks the high damage to take advantage of the whirlpool. They'd need help from the other mages to really use it effectively. After making a lot of these changes, sitting down and playing our game has never felt so fun. There's times where we're playing to test things and we want to keep playing, just for the sake of playing the game. That's a huge deal, and that has me more excited than ever to work on our game. Not only did we have a great time though, we've been able to see some friends have one as well. Roll footage. And now I sit here for the full 5 minutes of the footage in silence.
Whoa!
Get shot,
Get me out of there! I put the fire down.
No. Oh, you can. Have you guys tried to move with the whirlpool? Wait, you grabbed me. Wait a minute. Wait, ah!
Oh, fuck.
Oh, I was trying to use the
I die! I'm down. We suck! We suck! Get me up, I'm in the heel. Come on, Adam, pick somebody up.
Oh, I'm living. Killed all
Grab
of
me,
us.
baby.
I got you. Wait.
Oh, damn.
Game over, bro.
Try to bubble, man. Try to
God
bubble.
damn. We had it, boys.
Yes, girl, I am mutated. Thanks for asking. Or the
maps randomly generated? Oh my god, help.
We finna die.
I'm dead, no one's helping me.
Bye, Crank.
Help sign over my
I'm
head.
trying, Crank. You see what happens, Crank?
Fucking beating the shit out of a bunch of dudes.
Shane, don't tell anybody how much we suck at this game.
He's up.
Oh, no. Help me!
Troll.
No!
Oh, that's troll.
Troll.
You're
Give him the
down.
old toilet move. Oh,
Nah.
fuck.
No.
We did.
We dead. We dead. We gotta mix it up.
It's easy, don't worry, I got this.
Hey.
Oh, you got them all,
I
bro.
got movement, I got movement! No!
All right.
He's dead.
I want to win the game.
Andrew.
Hello. Oh my god, you bitch. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Cracked.
I am crazy.
Fuck!
I'm on crack.
I'm smoking crack.
Oh shit.
My fellow
like-
Americans. I want to be mommy. I want to be milky. I want to.
You wouldn't
little
download a picture of my balls.
I would though. That's where you're wrong.
Fuck, dude! You guys are cringe.
Fuck!
The game is an exciting spot for me right now. It's more fun to play than ever, and I think we have the right attitude to make it even better as time goes on. Making a game is really hard. Making anything creative is hard. And the process leading up to this video has been a huge learning experience for me. That being said, there's still a whole lot left to learn, and I hope that as I grow and improve, I can make this an even better game than I could yesterday. That's like the same lesson I had in my previous video. What the I'm not learning anything! Well now, how does this help all of you, oh, aspiring game developers? Or creatives, it doesn't have to be games. I think there's a lot we've now learned from hindsight of working on our project. Things that you can most certainly hear repeated by most game devs frequently, but it's really hard to appreciate them until you've made some of these mistakes yourself. So what would I say the biggest takeaways from our journey have been so far? Number one, don't fear criticism. Just playtest, playtest, playtest. Have people play your thing as much as possible. It's so easy for me to say this now. Oh, just show the thing you've been pouring your heart and soul into for everyone to criticize. I'd be lying if I wasn't terrified about posting a video like this, or even just showing you all the game in the first place. But it's not about being apathetic towards criticism. It's about acknowledging that fear and taking those pieces of criticism despite that. We can't make better things without knowing what people actually like and what people actually want. It's easier to live in a bubble, but if you want to make something awesome, you've got to put yourself out there. So just go for it. It's okay to be hurt when people don't like what you've been working on, but use that criticism to make something better the next time. Is my hair crazy? Number two, learn to prototype efficiently. We still don't know how. I think in hindsight, we could have saved a lot of time by focusing more properly on the parts of our prototype that were genuinely necessary. The most obvious example is designing the water mage before the lightning mage in the first prototype we did. But this is something we're constantly improving and learning about. I think spending time making really small games focused around one mechanic, or even doing game jams where you keep the scope really small, could help a lot in getting better at this. This isn't as simple as I'm presenting either. Sometimes sound or animation can really make a world of difference in making something feel fun, but knowing when those things are relevant really only comes with experience. So I think the more you practice, the better you'll be at flexing your prototyping muscles. Number three, make a lot of games and make games a lot. Game design is hard, like really impossibly hard. Making something that's fun, sounds good, looks good, feels good, players can understand. The list just goes on, and none of those things are ever something you'll truly master. The only way to get better at something like this is to just keep practicing. It's like any other craft. You can't expect to get better at it just by thinking about it, or watching design videos, or even studying. All of that helps, but you're only gonna get better if you actually design. Make more games, participate in more game jams. If you want to be a good game designer, you just have to design a lot. To say these are all the lessons I've learned since we started on this project would be a lie, but really there's just too many to list off here. Not only that, but as we continue to work on the project, I'm certain there will be more things I learn and have to share as well. I hope you'll be excited to hear about them just as I'm excited to learn about them. Thanks for joining me on this look back on what I've been working on for the past 2 years. I mean, me and Allison and Andrew. It's not just me. I am the CEO. This is really the first time I've been retrospective about it, and it's kind of crazy to see how far we've come from that first initial prototype. I'm really excited to show you more about what we're making. Currently, we're working on building a vertical slice where we'll have spell upgrades, some simple boss designs, and we're working on a more complicated level than the little arena you see right here. Get fucked, bitch. My hope here is going forward, we'll be able to post an update video about every month, but obviously the game will come before the updates, and if we don't have much to show, we might not post anything. If you want more frequent updates, please follow our company account, Cuppa Games, on Twitter, where we'll be posting more frequent, smaller updates. I really can't wait to show you where the project will be in a month. See you then.